to the Free Kick Podcast. My name is Todd. And hopefully now, after a couple days from that Austin FC Philadelphia Union game, you guys have been able to collect your thoughts from another Union draw, the third one in this MLS season. And who would have had this on their bingo card at the beginning of the season? That Union 2 would have a win at Subaru Park before the Union. Who would have saw that coming? Especially with Union 2 just starting their season this past weekend. First game at Subaru Park, first win. And is it disappointing to you guys yet that we've seen 3 draws so far in MLS play? Is it disappointing? I don't think so, right? I mean, we all see those graphics by Fox Sports, I believe, who put out the graphics for, all right, well, these are the teams that are remaining undefeated so far in MLS, and somehow, some way, the Union remain in that list with 3 straight draws in MLS. But I don't know, maybe the Union would have got a win against Seattle if that game wasn't postponed because of rain, which I feel like we haven't talked. I know we haven't talked about that. That was a crazy experience, and I'm not going to give my thoughts because the time's coming past. But if you guys are looking for people that share similar thoughts to me on that game, listen to Kyle and Jillian from the One Team We Agree On. I believe they talked about that game 2 episodes ago. So I'll leave a link in the show description if you guys are wanting to remember the rain out against Seattle a few weekends ago. But we're obviously going to talk about this Austin game. We have some news. We have Blunder of the Week. And Blunder of the Week, I feel like, is probably going to be our longest segment for this episode because this is a situation that you all are aware of if you're on social media. And for people who aren't, well, now you're about to be aware of the situation. But this is something I'm very, very, very angry at. Something that I'm very passionate about. And if you guys want to go ahead and hear those thoughts and skip till the end so you can hear exactly what I'm talking about. But yeah, Blunder of the Week, it's going to be a long one, guys. But we do have some news. So without further ado, let's get straight into the news. Cavan Sullivan is in advanced discussions to sign with Manchester City, according to Tom Bogert, Fabrizio Romano, Jonathan Tannenwald. The plan is for Cavan, who's only 14 years old, by the way, to be loaned to City Football Group Lamel, who play in the 2nd division in Belgium, who are on the verge of being promoted to the 1st division for this upcoming season when he turns 16 years old. Although nothing is finalized yet, all these people are reporting. But it looks like Cavan's going to Manchester City. And then once Cavan turns 18 years old, he could theoretically then play for Manchester City. But this is an interesting development. We've all been aware of Cavan Sullivan the last couple of years, how much people have hyped him up, saying he's the next real deal. He's the next thing in America. And what's interesting, too, is apparently the Union tried to do everything they could to make Cavan a homegrown player right now. They were willing to do that. Jonathan Tannenwald from the Inquirer reported that the Union were going to make him the most expensive homegrown player in MLS. And right now, the most expensive player is Julian Hall, who's a 15-year-old who is with the New York Red Bulls. And so Hall was making, according to the MLSPA last year, a little over $167,000 a year, and he signed a 3.5-year contract. And the Union apparently had no issue whatsoever making Cavan the highest paid homegrown in MLS history. But when you have aspirations to go to Europe, when you have top clubs wanting you, it's hard to turn that down. And do the Union deserve some of this blame? Maybe. This is a deal maybe the Union should have got done a while ago. And it's crazy to say that about a 14-year-old, but with how much people hype this kid up, it's hard not to get excited for him. And in one sense, it feels like it's a little bit of a loss that the Union aren't going to get any payment for Cavan Sullivan. With how much hype there is around him, you got to think that the Union would have got millions of dollars for him. But that's not going to be the case. He's going to go ahead and sign for a City Football Group, apparently, and go out on loan with Lamel, and then eventually return to Manchester City. But I think I'm going to leave you guys on a hot take before we discuss this any further or give any more thoughts. And I'm sure I'm going to get scolded for this, but I said this to a couple people, and I said, I don't think this is a big deal. I really don't. Yeah, you're losing your most talented prospect in your academy. Maybe the most highly thought after prospect you've ever had in your academy. And you're losing them for free. Yeah, it's one negative. Yeah, the Union don't get paid. Yeah, it sucks. You would like to see the Union get paid for Cavan. But I just said the key word. He's a prospect. And how many times have we seen over the years wonder kids get brought up and hyped up, and they don't live up to expectations? And look no further than two wonder kids that the Union have signed over the last couple years. One in Matai Orvitz, who thought that we would hear that name brought up again on the podcast, or Richard Adada. Both of those guys were highly thought of players at a young age in Europe. And neither one of them lived up to the potential. We see it all the time. Oh, this player is 13 years old. This player is 15 years old, and he's going to be the next Messi. How many times have you guys read those headlines in the newspaper? And I get part of it is to have those clickbait titles, so you have people click on your articles and now you get paid. But I feel like we see this so many times. We see it in all sports. You hype up a player at such a young age, and they can never live up to those expectations that you put on them before they even step foot to play professionally. And you hope that Cavan does work out. You hope that all this hype's real. And I'm sure I'm going to have some people tell me that, well, the hype is legit. He is a real prospect. He is the next best thing in America. But I feel like all the time, especially in American soccer, we see people saying, oh, the next Pulisic, this kid's better than Pulisic, the next Gio Reyna. And we have such a toxic culture here in America where we hype up these young kids. We have these fake accounts that are faceless on Twitter, acting like they're this great scout. Oh, I've been watching this kid since he was 3 years old. I know everything there is to know about this kid. I know what hand he uses to eat food with. I know when he takes his bathroom breaks. I know when he goes to sleep. It's like these people act like they know everything. And then they hype them up. And then people start running with it on social media. And then when the kid doesn't pan out, it's because of you people that are hyping them up at such a young age, thinking that you're a know-it-all. And yes, maybe Cavan Sullivan will be that. But I feel like every time we see a young American coming through the system, they're touted as the next big thing. And so that's why I think that it's not a big deal that the Union are losing Cavan Sullivan. Because more times than not, these players that are hyped up don't live up to the expectations. That's all I'm saying. And if I'm wrong, I'll gladly be wrong. And you guys can clip this. You guys can play this over and over and over again and say, see, you were wrong. But man, we hype these players up way too early. Just let the kids be kids, because that's exactly what Cavan is. At 14 years old, he's a kid. And we're acting like he's the next Messi. What are we doing? Let's move on to point number 2. This was reported by Tom Burgert. A key MLS roster rule change is in the works and is expected to be implemented this summer. And what exactly is that rule? Well, it's something that Jose Nunez and myself have talked about on this podcast and on each other's podcasts. That is, MLS is going to allow teams to have 3 U22 players, no matter what. And this is great. And this is fantastic for MLS teams that want to spend. Now you can have 3 over the age of 22 DPs on your roster and 3 U22s. And the great thing about this is we all know that the DPs, they only count towards the salary budget at a fixed charge of $683,000, and it's cheap. You can be paying Messi what? Is it like $20 million? And not $20 million are going to be against the budget, only $683,000. And that's the good thing about DPs is it doesn't kill your salary. And the really good GMs are good at getting players, talented players on TAM deals. And the really good teams are good at using the U22 initiative and finding really good talent. And so now we're going to see essentially 6 DPs on the roster, which is fantastic. We've seen Inter Miami, I guess, is probably the most recent example where Tomas Aviles, who Inter Miami signed for $7 million plus a whole bunch of add-ons. Diego Gomez, they signed for $3 million. But because they were all U22 players, they're going to have a lesser hit on their salary. And so when you invest in $23 million, you also had Facundo Farias, who was $5.5 million. So when you invest all this money that Inter Miami has invested, and don't forget they got in Federico Redondo because of the injury to Farias. And so they've spent $23 million on U22s. And it's going to be a slow hit against your roster budget. That's great. It means that you can invest more into your club. And this is what I talked about in the past, that this is what MLS needs to be doing. Going after these young players, going after the U22 players. There's nothing wrong with MLS being a selling league. Do you think all these players that just mentioned for Inter Miami are going to stay here in MLS for years to come? No. How much longer is Thiago Almada going to stay with Atlanta United? I feel like we've said the last couple transfer windows that he's going to be gone, and yet he's still here. But eventually he is going to be gone. You want to go to, and I know primarily it's been South America, but you want to go anywhere in the world and say, look, right now you've hit a stalemate in your career. You want to get your career back on the right track, or maybe you're just not that well known of a player yet. Come to MLS for a couple years. Redefine your game, find your game, and then the bigger clubs are going to want you. There's nothing wrong with that for MLS. And so, yes, continue to sign your 3 DPs over the age of 22, 23 years old. Nothing wrong with that. You want to build around those guys, but you also want to build around these young players. And so now MLS in the summertime are going to lift this rule where there is no issues where clubs have to have 2 DP spots open for them to initialize this U22 spot. So this is fantastic. And it's something that should have been done in the wintertime before the season started. And yes, you can argue all you want and say, what are we doing? what are we doing as MLS? Changing rules mid-season? How can this be a thing? And I'm with you 100%. It does make MLS a little bit of a laughingstock, but it's something that needed to be done. And credit to the owners, credit to Don Garber, where credit's due, that they're finally taking a step in the right direction. Took them a couple months, but this is something that should have been done long ago. And the owners, the commissioner, they have agreed. This is what we want for the league. So no more restrictions for how teams use U22 spots. And like I said, essentially 6 DPs on rosters. That's fantastic for the league. Really, really, really good. But the last 2 points that I want to bring up before we move on to the Austin game. Number 3, we'll make these quick. Houston Dynamo have agreed to a deal to acquire Latif Blessing from Toronto FC. And man, I mean, you look at Latif, he started his career in MLS with Sporting Kansas City. And then he went to LAFC and had a really, really, really solid 4 years with one of the best teams in MLS. And then he gets traded to New England, plays 15 games. And then Toronto and New England do a swap deal between Mark Anthony Kaye and Latif Blessing. Blessing goes up to Toronto, plays 5 games. And now he's on his way to Houston. And it's been a spiral for him since he's left LAFC. He's a talented player for sure, but it hasn't worked out with him in New England, in Toronto, and we'll see if he works out for the club down in Houston. And the last bit of news that I want to talk about is another trade, and that is the Vancouver Whitecaps acquiring Rafael Priso. And again, this is one of those players that has bounced around. He was thought as a promising player for the Canadian national team, was with Toronto, but got traded to Colorado, and now he's on his way from Colorado to Vancouver. We'll see if he can kickstart his career, continue to be the player that he was once thought he was going to be in the Toronto system. Colorado Rapids, though, in this trade, they've acquired a first and third round picks plus $150,000 in GAM, plus add-ons, plus a sell-on clause. So they get them super duper cheap. And again, just going back to my point where I said prospects get hyped up all the time and they don't always work out. Well, Priso was exactly that, a hyped up prospect in Toronto. And we saw how fast they moved on from him with the trade to Colorado, and now Colorado are moving on from him. So, just because they have talent doesn't mean it's always going to work out. But let's go ahead and talk about that Austin FC versus Philadelphia Union game that we know ended 2-2. And it's an interesting game from my perspective. I thought the first half was, even though the Union were winning, I thought it was quite boring. I thought the Union probably should be up right here. They should be up 2-0. They weren't. Julian Kranza had a shot in the 22nd minute with a header, saved by the goalkeeper. Quinn Sullivan forced a kick save that went out for a corner kick, I believe. We saw right at the end of the first half, Jack McGlynn crossing the ball to Kai Wagner, hits it on the volley, and he misses. Should have put that one on target. Good attempt. But the Union created chances in the first half, and they only got 1 goal thanks to a Daniel Gosling penalty kick. And a big part of that was the Union's press. And it's interesting when you compare the first half to the second half. It was, in my opinion, a night and day difference. Austin were held to 3 shots in the first half. None of those shots were on target, with 2 of those shots being blocked by Damian Lowe. The second half, Austin come out with 10 shots, 2 shots on target. Those 2 shots that they had on target were 2 goals. So when they were finding the target, they were clinical, burying their chances. It's what you want to see. I thought the Union's press looked fantastic in the first half, more energetic in the first half compared to the second half. It was the first time in all competitions this season, second time in all competitions this season, that the Union hadn't conceded in the first half. They didn't concede against Pachuca at Subaru Park. And yeah, you guys obviously don't want to hear me talk about that Pachuca game anymore. I believe the clip we're going to play, Jim Curtin did mention the Pachuca game, but I believe I cut that out because nobody wants to hear about that anymore. It's done, it happened, and we've moved on from that. At least I feel like most fans have. But as soon as things go sideways, of course, people are going to bring up that game again. But I thought, man, it's a missed opportunity not to get a second goal. It's great that you scored first because that hasn't been the case for the Union so far this season. It's always them that are conceding first. And so for the Union to come out to get a penalty, which I don't believe we've seen the Union have a penalty through 7 games so far in all competitions. Good to see Daniel Gazdag convert that. Made MLS history once he scored. First player in MLS history to score from their first 20 penalty kicks in their MLS career. Yes, I said this in the goals breakdown video. He's a pen merchant. Yes, people hate on him for it. But when you're looking for somebody to be automatic, other than that one game, you'd rather have Daniel Gazdag than an Olivier Bizo. Sorry, Olivier. I'm sorry. But for as good as the Union played in the first half, it all went to waste within 2 minutes of the second half, between minutes 56 and 58, when Austin scored their 2 goals. And both of those goals were preventable, in my opinion. On the first goal, yes, it takes a deflection, but Jack McGlynn should have been closing down Jimenez a lot faster. There should never be a point where you can allow the player to have that much space, take a touch, pick up their head, and then cross the ball in. They shouldn't be able to have that much time on the ball. The cross in takes the deflection off of Jack McGlynn. Jack Elliott gets beat from behind by Diego Rubio, and Austin tied the game out 1 apiece. And I'm going to mention my goals breakdown video again. I'll plug it, youtube.com/freekickpod. The spacing was horrible by the Union's 2 center backs. You had Damian Lowe playing more forward than Jack Elliott. Jack Elliott's backing up. You want to see your 2 center backs there on that play. If you watch that video, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. I know that talking about the goals doesn't really transition well in an audio format, but they've got to have better pairing, better spacing. One player can't be ahead of the other one. And maybe the deflection put Jack Elliott off. You saw Damian Lowe try to stick a foot out there. But if Damian Lowe's more in line with Jack Elliott, then he probably does get a foot to the ball. It wasn't the greatest cross into the box. And then when the ball gets by Damian Lowe, you have Diego Rubio making a run in behind Jack Elliott. There's no way you should let a striker get in front of you like that. You've got to throw a head, a foot, something out to try to clear this ball. And it's just not been good enough by the Union center backs, by their defenders this season. And I'm going to steal a line from Jim Curtin that he said a couple weeks ago. The good thing is all of these goals are preventable. And he's right. They really are. And I think that's the frustrating thing. If a team earns their goal, then good job. Like, credit to where it's due. But there's no way Austin should have scored that first goal. There's no way they should have scored their second goal. You have Kai Wagner getting beat on the left-hand side of the field, Austin's right. And Jose Martinez and Damian Lowe are both shifting towards the ball. And that's bad communication. And Kai Wagner does a good job to try to recover. And it is the right play, essentially, by Damian Lowe to, all right, close down the ball because Kai's beat. But there's no reason for Jose Martinez to go and follow the ball, too. Because in doing so, now John Gallagher, the goal scorer for Austin on this play, is free on the back post. You leave Nate Harriel isolated in a 2v1 situation where it should have been Quinn Sullivan on Gallagher. But because Jose Martinez leaves the middle of the 18-yard box, Quinn Sullivan now has to cut inside and mark Alexander Ring. It's a preventable goal right there. There's no reason why the Union should have got scored on either one of these goals. And you can say it for so many goals that the Union have conceded this season. And so if there's one positive you want to take away is, and these goals are preventable. These goals can be corrected. But you flip it and you say, well, we've been saying that for the last couple games and they haven't been corrected yet. Fair point. I totally get it. I agree with you. But it's not like teams are coming at the Union and scoring fantastic goals. That's not the case. It's essentially the Union beating themselves. But credit to where it's due. The Union do get the equalizing goal through Mikal Ua. But Jim Curtin was talking about in his opening statement the first half compared to the second, and this is what he had to say.
In the first half, I thought we looked like us. Statistically from the game, when you go on the road, it's always hard to create chances, but overall, you talk about transitions that lead to attempts at goal. It was very high this game. Shots on the road are hard to come by. I think we had outshot our opponent, which is not easy. Had a lot of good chances, played a really, really strong first half. But a good lesson, not getting that second goal. You let good teams hang around and they can make a play. So I think the first goal, a little bit unlucky. We could do a better job maybe closing the ball at the flex on the cross. And our box defending has to be a little better. Second one, Kai scrambles for a ball on the sidelines and gets beat. And now there's a domino effect and everybody's scrambling. We need to do a better job defending the box.
Yeah, I mean, essentially there, Jim Curtin repeats everything that I just said to you guys. But we could all see that the Union played much better in the first half than they did in the second. And I guess this brings up my next point. The Union ended a scoreless open play streak, which I don't know how many people paid attention to this. And I think myself, I was a little bit shocked when I looked up this number. Prior to Mikal Ua's goal, the Union had went 429 minutes in all competitions without a goal from open play. And that's the equivalent of 4.7 games. It's not great. And it's all fine and dandy when you're scoring goals off of restarts, when you're scoring penalty kicks. But last year, for context, the Union scored 61% of the goals last year in MLS from open play. And any team's going to have more goals from open play than they do restarts. It's just the way the game goes. There's more action than stop and go. So, of course, you're going to have more goals from open play. But to go 429 minutes without a goal in open play, that's not great. And you hope that it's not a trend. You hope that we don't see the Union go that long without a goal from open play again all season long. Jim talked about it. We created chances. He said, felt like the Union should have had another goal in the first half, and they don't get it. They don't get it at all. And Jim said, you allow good teams to get back into the game, they're going to punish you. Is Austin a good team? No, I don't think so. Sure, they have some talented players. But you're the reason. Your team's the reason why Austin scored the goals. They didn't earn those goals. It was preventable mistakes. And of course, Jim's not going to say that publicly. But I think we'd be kidding ourselves if we weren't saying that those goals shouldn't have been scored. Because they shouldn't have been. Credit to Mikal Ua, like I said, for now scoring his third game-tying goal this season in all competitions. Is it safe to say Mikal Ua is clutch yet? It's a pretty good number, 3 and 7. 3 game-tying goals in 7 games. Pretty good. Almost half the games, which, again, isn't great either that you've been playing from behind and you need somebody to tie the game up for you. But it is good that you're getting that goal from Mikkel Ua that, when you need somebody to get a goal, he's essentially giving you it. And he gets so much hate, which I understand a little bit. There are moments, there are plays where you hope that he finishes it off, but he doesn't get a lot of touches. He doesn't get a lot of chances created for him. He had 2 shots this game, and one of those shots ended up being a goal. And so it's really, really good that Mikkel got the goal. It's good that the Union ended this scoreless streak from open play. Yeah, there's some signs for concern. Like I said in the intro, the Union are undefeated so far in MLS. They are undefeated. They have 3 points. They head out to Portland this Saturday, which is going to be a struggle. They're going to be missing 8 players because of international duty. Damian Lowe and Andre Blake, both away with Jamaica. Daniel Gazdag with Hungary. Ty Baribo with Israel. Jesus Bueno and Jose Martinez, Venezuela. Jack McGlynn and Nate Harriel with the U.S. getting ready for the Olympics. And it's funny, too. I saw fans say this on social media that Ty Baribo is going to have more minutes played with Israel than he will with the Union. It's true, right? It's true. Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what the Union do in Portland, especially in that midfield. Bedoya, you feel like it's definitely going to play. Quinn Sullivan, you'd imagine, will probably be the 10. Jeremy Raffanello, I guess, could be that. Play Quinn as one of the 8s. Nick Pariano, does he make his Union debut? Sanders Nagbo. What did the Union do at the defensive midfielder spot? Do you put Bedoya there? Maybe. Do you try playing Jack Elliott there as a 6? God, no. Then that means that you would play Macania potentially in his debut with Jacob Glesnes as the 2 center backs. Nah, don't do that. Do you try to play Kai Wagner as a center back? Play Matt Real as a left back? Do you put Matt Real in the midfield? Maybe he can play as the lone 6. I don't know. It's going to be so scrappy for the Union putting together a midfield. Going to be tough decisions, tough discussions that Jim Curtin and his coaching staff are going to have. The game has to get played. The Union will play it. But, man, that midfield. Have you guys thought about that yet before I brought it up? Now you guys are thinking, right? Like, wow, our midfield. What is a midfield? Man, I hope we're not saying that. I hope we're not saying that Saturday night. What is this midfield? Like, do we have a midfield out there? I can see the comments now. And people, if the Union lose this game, people are going to be panicking. But it's like, should we be panicking? Imagine if Olivier Bizo got called up to the Cameroon national team. No Bizo, no Nate Harriel. Now you have no right back. Do you try to play Bedoya as a right back? God, that would have been terrible. Would you have liked to see Jim Curtin play some of those younger guys against Austin? Probably, but they didn't. So it'll be interesting to see what happens Saturday night in Portland before the Union return back home at Subaru Park to play Minnesota United the following week. But man, I don't want to think about this game. I don't want you guys thinking about this Portland game until we get closer to it. Enjoy your week. Don't stress over what the lineup's going to look like, even though I think I've probably done that for some of you guys now. Let's go ahead and talk about the 3 stars, and we'll get to Blunder of the Week. Number 3 on the night, I think Mikkel Ua. 1 goal. Like I said, he had 2 shots, and on one of those shots, it resulted in a goal. 1 tackle, 1. 2 out of 3 aerials, 1. 4 out of 6 ground duels, 1. Mikkel, solid night. We talked about him scoring a game-tying goal. 3 game-tying goals this season. think it's interesting too, though, that the Union, I don't think were great in the air. Overall, they had more aerials won compared to Austin. But there's no way that the Union should have had it as close as it was with aerials won 14-9. Union won 61% of their aerials. Be a little bit better in the air compared to a team that just not that tall. Number 2 in the night. Yes, he's responsible, in my opinion, for the second goal conceded. But he had a solid night, a really, really solid night. Jose Martinez, 8 passes into the final third, 2 out of 3 tackles won, 1 block, 2 interceptions, 5 ball recoveries, 7 out of 10 ground duels won. Just a really, really solid defensive night from Jose. Just that one moment where him and Damian Lowe both go to the attacker, to Owen Wolf. Just one moment, but really, really solid defensively from Jose. Number 1, Jack McGlynn. 4 chances created, 44 out of 49 passes completed. It comes out to be 90%. 7 passes into the final third. 6 out of 7 tackles won. 5 ball recoveries, 8 out of 9 ground duels won. 6 out of 7 tackles won. That's really impressive. And for a player that gets dogged on because of what he does defensively or what he doesn't offer defensively, it's really, really solid numbers there defensively. Worked his tail off. Of course, Jack's always going to create. But the better that he gets defensively, the better of a two-way player he's going to become. And so to be, in my opinion, the best player in the midfield, the best player on that field, and I don't think it was close, a really, really, really good performance for Jack McGlynn. A performance that is going to give him confidence going away with the youth national team. And hopefully, when he comes back, he just continues to have those performances like he had against Austin Saturday night. But yeah, let's go ahead. Let's go ahead and talk about Blunder of the Week. This whole situation has me so upset, so angry. And so my Blunder of the Week, maybe Blunder of the Year, is going to go to FC Cincinnati for taking away Laurel Pfahler's press credentials for 2 weeks.
Yeah, not good.
Yeah, not good at all. And so if you guys aren't aware of this whole situation, let me get you guys caught up. I'm going to read a whole bunch of statements here just so you guys have the context. I'll leave links to all of these articles in the show description if you guys want to read it yourself. But Laurel, she works for Queen City Press, has been covering Cincinnati games since 2016. She also covers the Bengals, the Reds, the NCAA, US Soccer. She's worked for outlets like ESPN, The Athletic, the New York Daily News, the Associated Press. She votes for MLS awards, including MVP. And Cincinnati decides to take away her credentials for 2 weeks. And so this was Laurel's letter to all the people on her Patreon that pay for her coverage. I debated whether I would make this public, but I owe it to my Patreon followers and FC Cincinnati fans to be transparent in why I will not have quotes in my coverage of today's game against DC United. Since FC Cincinnati began playing in 2016, I have been in the press box for almost every home game. Most of those I missed come when I took time away after the birth of my daughter. Sadly, the club told me Friday, I will not have a press pass for 2 weeks, and so I will not be at TQL Stadium today. I was stunned and hurt. It hurts me most because it hurts you. It impacts your ability to know more about the team you love. I built many great relationships with wonderful people throughout the organization since the club started. This message in no way is indicative of how I feel the club as a whole has treated me. I've been a trusted media member for 2 decades with press credentials in the NFL, MLB, NCAA, US Soccer, and MLS. I have written stories for outlets including ESPN, The Athletic, the New York Daily News, and the Associated Press. I hold a vote for MLS awards, including MVP. I began covering FC Cincinnati for WCPO and then The Athletic as a contracted beat writer. When COVID impacted games, demand for sports coverage waned, And so I started a Patreon account to continue my work because you as fans deserve more quality coverage of the franchise. Subscriptions to my content show me fans value this coverage. While I do not want to get into the details of why my press credentials have been revoked, I want you to know I vehemently disagree with the club on the decision. The club has not accused me of violating any guidelines listed in the MLS Notice of Credential Use Conditions. I stand by my reporting on ethics. I have covered the Cincinnati Bengals for the Dayton Daily News since 2015. I can say with confidence another professional sports team would not have revoked a credential in this case. Even a temporary credential revocation makes it more difficult for me to do my job, but it does not prevent me from providing quality coverage. And so that's pretty much the end. I'll let you guys read the rest of it if you want. It's a long letter. And so Laurel puts that out on March 10th. And then Cincinnati on March 14th, after pressure from fans on social media with the hashtag #FreeLaurel, they came out and had their own press release and said, "To our fans who have inquired about the status of media credentials for Queen City Press. In 7 years, over thousands of stories, FC Cincinnati has never rescinded a reporter's credentials. Reporters are invited into FC Cincinnati's Mercy Health Training Center and TQL Stadium, our workspaces, consistent with a tradition of integrity and trust between sports organization and the media. Since its founding in 2015, FC Cincinnati has supported local journalism and coverage from its hometown newspapers, television, radio stations, and news media bloggers alike. We have no issues with critical yet professional coverage of the team, as it is the passion of fans for a successful team that drives the intensity of our support while we aim to proudly represent our community. We had no intentions of making this story public. However, since Laurel Pfahler has driven public attention to this matter, we have no choice but to provide answers to many questions our fans are asking. Laurel has failed to act in accordance with the standards and practices of the Society of Professional Journalists and the MLS Notice of Credentials Use Conditions. She refuses to accept responsibility for her actions, despite multiple conversations and attempts at working together to forge a productive relationship between her and the club. Out of professional decorum, we will not be sharing the details publicly. The decision is temporary. Rescind her media credentials is meant to serve as an opportunity to reflect and rebuild based on trust, transparency, and adherence to common set of standards and ethics associated with her role as a journalist. In the spirit of All for Cincy, we hope to move forward in a positive manner soon. A lot of statements to be read, I know. And so, man, I feel like you guys are lost. I feel like I'm boring you guys to death. But essentially, she lost her credential because of reporting. And ESPN's Jeff Carlisle came out and said that, well, the reporting in question is player transactions. And one of those players' transactions were Alvaro Barriel. Cincinnati apparently did not like the reporting. And this was essentially the final straw. And they pulled her credentials. And that's a joke. An absolute joke of a professional franchise to pull a reporter's credentials for doing their job, literally doing their job, being a journalist, reporting on news. She's finding stories to report on. And Cincinnati has an issue with that? They have an issue with her reporting? No. You don't get to decide what she writes, who she talks to. She doesn't work for you. And you're going to treat a member of the media that way? Who are you? Who are you, FC Cincinnati? And I'm not naive, right? I realize journalists and club alike would not have a job if it wasn't for the fans. What are we doing, Cincinnati? What are we doing? Making it, we're bigger than any journalists, bigger than any fans. We're going to bully you. No, that's not okay. These intimidation tactics. If you don't get in line with us, we're going to take your credentials away longer. Play by our rules or no access for you. Really? So somebody that's been covering the team since 2016 was there for the USL days before you were nothing? And get this right. You are still nothing, Cincinnati? to treat a reporter that way for doing her job? What are we doing? Like, seriously, ask yourself, what are we doing? Have you guys ever seen a professional club come out with a statement talking about taking away credentials from a journalist? That is so Bush League. So Bush League. Like, for crying out loud, you play in MLS. You're not even the number one team in your city. And you think you're this important. It makes no sense to me. And rightly so. Fans, journalists alike, are pissed off. North American Soccer Reporters, the organization that me and so many other people that cover teams around America are a part of. They came out with a lovely statement standing by Laurel and her reporting in hopes that MLS corrects this issue. But there's no reason why we should even be here. There's no reason why Laurel should have lost her credentials for doing her job. For doing her job. What's so wrong with doing her job? Nothing. Because she's going to multiple different sources? Because you don't know her sources? That means that you can dictate access you're going to give her? No. And this is an MLS issue as a whole, in my opinion. MLS thinks that they're bigger than what they are. Yes, you guys might be the biggest soccer league in America, which isn't hard to do, but you're certainly not bigger than the NFL. You're not bigger than the MLB. You're not bigger than NBA. Maybe you're bigger than NHL. But who are you, MLS? You're nothing. You want to compete with the best clubs in the world. You want to compete with the best leagues in the world. You want to be taken serious. And it's decisions like this that will make you a laughingstock. With just all the hype around Messi. You go on the homepage and you see Messi. And people joke, oh, it's Messi League Soccer. Well, when Messi's shoved down your throat, when you send out emails every single week to your fans asking, oh, are you watching MLS games because of Messi? People cannot wait till Messi is out of this league. People do not give a shit about Messi. God, you guys are so lost. You guys are so lost in what reality is, thinking that you're bigger than you are. Like, what are we doing? Seriously, what are we doing? There's been multiple instances already, so young in this season, of journalists getting denied credentials, been covering teams for years. And now we don't want to give them access because we don't like the reporting. Without journalists, who's going to cover your league? Nobody. Don Garber, a couple weeks ago, took a shot at journalists and said, it's easy to write stories about Messi. We need more stories other than Messi. You are the reason, Don, why there is so much Messi talk. On your own website, on Season Pass, it's Messi. You are the reason there's so much Messi talk. People cannot wait until Messi is gone. You have shoved Messi down fans' throats so far that I didn't know. I didn't know that it would be this bad. And you hear conversations, oh, is Messi going to be good for Major League Soccer? No. No, it's not. No, it's not. Cincinnati, MLS, they can't even get out of the way sometimes. And so I'm ticked off, as you can tell. Somebody that's been covering the club since 2016, that has credentials in the MLB, NFL, NCAA, US Soccer, and you're going to treat her this way? Come out with a statement, trying to make it look like you're the good guys to pin fans against Laurel? You guys really have no clue, do you? No clue whatsoever. But that's pretty much I have on Blunder of the Week. Ticked off. Hopefully you people that want to wear this situation, well, now you guys are. But if you guys aren't following the podcast on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook, follow at Free Kick Pod, wherever you get your podcast, The Free Kick. YouTube channel, youtube.com/freekickpod. thefreekick.substack.com is where you can find my writing. And I don't even know what else I plug because I'm so annoyed with this whole situation with Laurel. And she's not the only one that this happens to. She's not. So don't turn a blind eye to, oh, well, this is just a Cincinnati issue. No, it is not. It's more clubs than you can imagine. So I'd hate to end the episode such a negative note. But here we are. Here we are. But with that said, my name is Todd, and this is the Free Kick Podcast.